Hi, my name is Dallas Olson. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at NetApp, and you are watching the Sachin Syal's ochakde show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ochakde Show. We're Silicon Valley's first business, tech, and self-improvement podcast for teens, hosted by a teen me. I'm Sachin Syal. I'm a 19-year-old award-winning entrepreneur, podcaster, author, and student from the Bay Area, and I interview remarkable and influential entrepreneurs, executives, investors, leaders, and inspiring individuals from all walks of life so we can learn from their stories and level up ourselves. I'm also the co-founder and CMO of 3doshas.com. We're a coaching company transforming lives with 3dosha science from ancient science from India. The purpose of this show is to inspire you to go for it, which is what the Punjabi word ochakde means. Today, our very special guest is Dallas Olson Jr., who is the Chief Commercial Officer of NetApp. As the Chief Commercial Officer of NetApp, Dallas is the sales chief for the entire company, leading global go-to-market strategy for a $7 billion business with a $2 billion operating budget. He transformed the company to a platform-led model, driving growth through AI, cloud, and strategy partnerships. Before NetApp, Dallas was the COO of Americas and SVP of Global Go-to-Market Strategy and Revenue Growth at Cisco. Dallas holds a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration, Management, and Operations from Presbyterian College, where he played men's soccer, and he was also the student body president. So Dallas, welcome to the Ochakde Show. How are you, and what's new and exciting in your life right now?
Oh, Sachin, hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Great introduction, by the way. You reminded me of some of the things in my past that I've already forgotten about, so thank you for that. Hey, life is great. Things are fantastic. And I'm really, really excited to be talking to you in this podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's truly an honor and privilege. But before we start, we're going to have to talk about how we got to know each other. So let me tell the audience a little bit about that. So I was with my brother, and we were just hanging out in Santana Row, just casually to hang out. And as you guys know, the NetApp headquarters is right there in San Jose in Santana Row. And I saw a bunch of guys. They were just outside the NetApp office, and I saw their badges, and I just randomly decided to go up to them. I don't exactly remember what I said. I just said something like, "Hey, like, do you guys work at NetApp?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then I talked to them a little bit, and someone pointed to Dallas, and he's like, "Oh, this is our sales chief." And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." And then after they left, knowing me, you know what I did? I put Dallas NetApp on Google, and then his LinkedIn came up, and I'm like, "Oh shoot, that's the chief commercial officer of the entire company." So I actually told my brother, "Hey, like, I'm just gonna go run after this guy to try to see if I can get an interview with him." So my brother said, "Sure." And I went and we got to meet you, and I made a LinkedIn post about it. It was really fun, but it's a great way. It's a great lesson for the audience, the power of ask. If I didn't have gone up to those guys, I wouldn't have got the opportunity. Then also going to Dallas as well and asking him. I remember we talked about my podcast, and now we're making it happen. So such a beautiful full circle moment. Do you remember that, by the way?
I do. I remember it very, very well. In fact, I was actually really impressed with you. I think, we had a conversation. It was pleasant. We were exchanging pleasantries, and then we went off and went on our way. And about 3 minutes later, you tracked me down and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
I had no idea that you did this at the company, and I do a podcast." And you said, "Do you know G2 over at Cisco?" I said, "I know G2," and I thought, "Wow, who is this guy? This is pretty interesting." And look, you were also very composed. You were very, very present, and I was also very impressed that you were asking, like, "Hey, come join me on my podcast." And I honestly loved it. I thought it was fantastic. So here we are. Here we are.
We made it.
By
We
the
made it
way,
happen.
yeah, I think the thing I love most too is like you talked about the asking.
Hmm.
One of my favorite quotes is a Wayne Gretzky quote, which is, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
Yeah.
And so literally, it went through my mind as you came up and asked me. So it was
Yeah.
great. Thanks again, Sachin, for making this
Of
happen.
course, one of my favorite moments ever, by the way. It was so amazing. I'm so glad we were able to make it happen. Let's take it back, Dallas. Bring us back to your teen years. What were you passionate about and into, and what drew you to tech?
Yeah, great question. I think, when I think back to my teen years, at the time, I was really, really into music, and I was really into sports. I played soccer in my teen years growing up, and then then I was really involved in music. And so playing instruments, I was into percussion and I played a lot of woodwind instruments, you name it. I did. I got into conducting, all of that.
Nice.
I think in my teen years, I also fell in love with reading famous leaders and how they'd approach tough situations and those types of things. And it started off with sports figures, and then I just quoted Wayne Gretzky as an example, and then it moved into famous musicians and conductors, and then it moved into the business world, and I started reading about generals and all of that, and I quickly realized in order to have a leadership impact, you had to go way beyond yourself, and I ultimately I'll talk about that connection to tech later on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I found my avenue there. But during those years, I was also very interested in tech. Now, I have to preface this and say tech back then was very different than what it is today, right? It was very different. So being on the edge of tech back then wasn't what it means today, but technology was always something that fascinated me during my teen years. So yeah, that was my teen years. It was a great time. I was very fortunate.
That's amazing. Do you still play soccer?
I do, you know what I do, and I'm
Nice.
getting to the point where I need to hang up the boots. I'm going to have to officially retire at some point soon, but I still play. I play in an adult league. Super fun. Love it
Nice.
every week. Yeah,
That's amazing. It's a great way
yeah,
to, it's good for your physical and mental health, right? It's amazing.
yeah. Super fun.
So, for the young folks watching right now, can you simply explain in a simple way, like, what does it mean to be the Chief Commercial Officer of NetApp and what are your roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, I think in the most simple of ways, I help represent the interests of NetApp as a company. And so if you think about in your left hand, you have NetApp. There's a company. The company wants to grow. It wants to thrive. It wants to capture new customers and prosper. And then I also represent the interests of our customers and our partners. And so I sit at a very interesting intersection between those two stakeholders, right? NetApp and our customers and our partners, and how do you bring those together?
Mhm.
And so that's the primary function of my job. And so essentially what I do is we figure out how to take the products and services of NetApp and solve customer problems and do that with our partners. And then at the same time, find out what our customers really need and really want and bring that feedback back to the company, back to NetApp, and help NetApp evolve, adapt, and develop what our customers want and need. So it's this virtuous cycle of interaction between NetApp and the customer. And it's absolutely fascinating. So at the highest of levels, and I hope that was simple, that's what I do as the
Oh, yeah.
CCO. Yeah,
Thank you for explaining
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm curious what like led you here. I know you worked at Cisco before. You got to a really high level there too as well. I'm curious what roles or experiences did you have before NetApp that brought you here and gave you the tools to succeed?
Yeah, I think by the way, I love this question. It's super insightful. And I think it's really important because a lot of times people ask me, they say, hey, I'd love to get some career advice from you, people that are already working.
Yeah.
And when I think about your audience, I think there's a couple of themes that I'll touch on here. And again, I'll touch on throughout our conversation. I think if as I think about the roles and the experiences that I had in the past that brought me to this moment, the one thing that was most important is that I told myself early on I wanted to be multidimensional. And now that sounds kind of like a buzzword, right? But what it really means is I have multiple skill sets in many different arenas. And that's as you get into life, that can be very hard to do. And I think especially nowadays, being multidimensional is very tough because there's this really deep pressure in everything that we do in society and in study and colleges and business or whatever it is to specialize. And you think about it, right? I remember in when I was in high school, I remember playing soccer and I played baseball and I wanted to play a little basketball. And I remember the soccer coaches saying, "Hey, look, if you really want to be good at soccer, this is all you can do," right? And that pressure to specialize, and it's even more intense today. And I think people feel it. You get to college and you got to know your major right away. You
Yeah.
got to, right, all of these things. And so what I tell people that was the most important thing in my career that got me here to this moment was avoiding that and being multidimensional, forcing myself into other arenas. So the example in high school was I continued to play baseball and I continued to play basketball. And I'll give you a very tactical example because then I'll explain this in business.
Sure.
soccer was my love. That's the sport I wanted to play, and ultimately in college. But baseball gave me really strong hand-to-eye coordination. Baseball
Nice.
forced me to really think about paying attention, especially in quiet moments, and really be a student of the game and what was going on. Basketball did the same, right? The tactics on the court, being part of a team, all of that helped me be a better soccer player, right? And so if you take that same type of analogy and think about all my experiences, and I'll cover that really fast, but in my work life and what brings me to this moment, I feel like I'm a better professional because of the experiences that I've had in these other arenas that have given me skill sets that I would have never gotten by doing just one thing. And so I'll bring it home. I'll give you an example.
Sure.
I started off in logistics, right? So right out of school, I got into logistics. It was fascinating. I loved it. I held every job that you could hold in supply chain and logistics and go to market, and realized if I do this for another 5 years, I'll probably track. So I jumped into software. I went into the software world, held every job you could hold there. I went into mergers and acquisitions. I went into strategy. And then from there, I wound up jumping into tech, hardware and software, and had that same experience. And I learned a lot along the way, which I can talk about later. But I think the important part is, as I sit here today as a CCO, the
Hmm.
reason that I'm here and the reason I have this job is because I have those experiences and those skill sets from other arenas. And had I just stayed in one chain, if you come out and you go into, one role, you're in sales your whole career, you're in operations your whole career, it's very difficult after 15 years of something like that to take on a multi-dimensional role. So that's I'll stop there and get your reaction to that or any additional questions. But
I actually find that really fascinating because typically, you know what people say? They say find one thing you're really good at and just focus on that. But I love how you're saying that you should have not do that. So thank you for sharing that. It's a little different than what I usually hear, and I appreciate that.
yeah, it's very different. And I really, really believe in it. I do think, look, there's some validity to the statement of find one thing.
Of
But
course.
but one of the challenges, especially when you're young, and when I was young, I didn't know. And to force yourself to absolutely know what you want to go bet the rest of your working career on is,
Yeah,
to me, is just, it's not realistic. And I think that if you can approach your career thinking, I'm going to do something for a little bit and learn, I'm going to do something else for a little bit and learn, you will be that much better off
I love it.
later.
So when you were around my age, I'm 19. I'm a first year in college right now. I'm studying advertising at San Jose State. Did you know you were going to be a tech executive, or did you want to be an athlete?
No, that's such a cool question. I knew that I wanted to go into business. Okay.
Nice.
I because I felt like what I'd fallen in love with was like leadership, right? I was, being a part of teams and having an opportunity to do that and other organizations. I really wanted to be a leader. I just was enamored with it. Um, and so I knew I wanted to go into business, right? But I didn't know what avenue, and I didn't know where my deepest interests would lie. And look, I'll tell you, as I went through school, I remember taking my accounting courses, and I took managerial accounting, and I loved it. And I thought, oof, wow, this could potentially be me. And then I took
Nice.
marketing, and I was like, oh, this is amazing, right? This may be me. And I remember taking all those courses, and I just realized, you know what? I just need to get out there and get into something, and I'll learn. And so I didn't put pressure on myself to hyper specialize in college. I just said, I'm going to try and be as broadly disciplined as I can in business, and then I'm going to go land a job, and I'll learn everything I can, through real world experience. And that made all the difference for me, because I approached all the courses in college with very curious, open eyes, right?
Yeah,
Not
thank
as
you for
something I got
sharing
to
that.
check in order to get, in order to get the degree, right?
No, I mean, majority of my audience is college age students, so it's wonderful you shared that. Of course, I have to bring up the question that you've probably been asked thousands of times, but AI is everywhere today. How is AI impacting your life?
Oh my gosh, AI. Look, I'll tell you this. If I said I knew specifically, I'd be wrong and probably a little ignorant. And the only thing that I can relate this to is what I've gone through previously in my career and in my life. As I went through all those jobs I was talking about earlier, one
Hmm.
of the things that I experienced is what I call tectonic shifts. So when I was in logistics, I remember I was part of DHL, and at the time we were a domestic operation, and the new world order was you wanted international business. And the company and all of us went through the shift of, hey, everyone knows domestic. Now you need to learn international. It was, at the time, it was like, wow, this is a big change. Then I got into software, and it was in healthcare, right? And we were selling medical record software to doctors' offices and hospitals. And then the electronic medical record came along. And again, it was that same tectonic shift. You went from individual software to institutions to an electronic medical record. Again, at the time, huge tectonic shift in the industry. I joined Cisco. Cisco was a hardware company. Cisco was like, we want to become a software company too. We want to be hardware and software. And, that was a big deal for the company at the time in making that shift. Then we went through cloud, and then we went through SaaS and tech, right? And now here we are at AI. And I share all of that to say that in every one of those moments, we thought we knew going in what it really meant, but we really didn't. And I think that if there's anything I've learned that I'd pass on to your audience today, it's this. It's like asking somebody, how did you learn to run? And they stop and they're like, well, I've never really thought about having to learn how to run.
Yeah, that's true.
And the reason is, hey, first, if you were to break that down, you'd be like, well, first I started to crawl, and then I had to learn how to walk when I was little, and then I got better over time, and I got bigger and strong, right? There's a logical, technical, scientific answer to that. But the truth is, that experience of not really knowing, how did I learn how to run, is a lot like AI. And it's really, really important to just tell yourself and everyone in the audience, just stay current with what's in front of us right now, because the journey will be the teacher, right? Yeah. Trying to predict and forecast what will happen at the end of this cycle, no one really knows. That's However, true. if you, your audience, myself, and this is how it's affecting me, just stay current with, hey, we've got Chat GPT, and now we have more advanced models that are out there. And if you play with it and you use it and you apply it to your life and try and use it in your work or your life for productivity, you're going to learn what you need over time. And I think that's the message. Stay current with what's right in front of us, and we'll be great. Now, I'll close, man, with I think here's some examples. At work, gosh, harnessing knowledge is amazing using AI. So it used to be, in order to go out and do research and do analysis, it took a lot of work. AI is changing that overnight for us. In my personal life, planning travel is amazing using AI. It's unbelievable. And so again, everyone knows these specific examples in their life, and these aren't very exciting examples, but what I would tell people is, what I'm telling myself is, hey, don't get wrapped up in where this goes and what it means, because that can be scary. It can also be really exciting. Just stay very current with what's right in front of us and learn every step of the way. And it's like running. What'll happen is 10 years from now, someone like me will be going, I went through cloud, then I went through SaaS, and I went through AI, right?
Yeah.
But right now it is the biggest tectonic shift that we're all facing. So
that's spot on.
Yeah.
You said the journey will be the teacher, right? I love that. It. That's amazing.
Exactly it. And I'm so glad that you picked up on it, because that is it. That if I had to button it all up, the journey is the teacher. And as long as you stay present in the journey, you'll have everything that you need when the time comes, especially around AI.
That's wonderful. All right, how about we do this? I'm going to do 3 rapid fire questions. So I'm going to ask you it, and we're going to do it quickly. And then I'm going to ask you the last 2 questions that I asked all my guests. So the first one is, if you had to rebuild a sales org from scratch today, what would you do differently?
Oh, wow. That's, again, man, these questions are awesome. I think what I would do differently is I would make sure that and this comes back to tech, that the digital platform and the technology platform was built around the customer first, and then back ended into all of the operational needs that a company has to service the customer. I think what you see in business today is all of these platforms have been built to support, a seller or a product leader. And then you try and figure out how to bring all that together and deliver something to the customer. I think if you start with a digital platform on what's going to deliver the most value to the customer and work backwards, it changes everything. And there's probably a lot of people my age who will hear that and laugh, because that's literally what tech is about today, is trying to unwind the complexity of lots and lots of different digital platforms and bring them together. So that's the one thing that I would do. Yeah.
Next rapid fire question. If you joined a company tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd audit in their GTM?
Hmm. I would audit the skill sets of the field sellers. And I don't mean that as a negative thing, meaning most sellers are very, very skilled and they're very adaptable people. And I would make sure that they had the right skill sets to go be effective and be successful. And then again, work backwards from that point, because if they have all of the skills they need, then they're going to give value to the customer. And that ultimately, that's what wins. Right.
Amazing. All right, what's next? I'd like for you to look ahead in your future. What are some of your future goals and plans, and what's next for Dallas Olson Jr.?
Yeah. You know what's super cool about this conversation is, you've asked me about like, hey, tell me about your teen years and what you did. And, I remember one of the things that I thought a lot about in my teen years was I read famous authors like Stephen Covey and, everybody that everyone's ever read. And they always talk about mission statements and life plans and all these things. And what I didn't realize back then was you can't set a plan, in your 20s for the rest of your life. And what I've learned is that every decade is unique, right? And so as I look at my decade now, at the age that I'm at, what's in front of me, I have some really joyous things in front of me. My children are adults now, which is super fun. And so that brings on a whole new experience. I have an opportunity to travel more with my work and enjoy that. I have an opportunity to be curious and learn. And the big things for me are experiencing and making it through this AI tectonic shift and transformation in a way where I feel like I can harness knowledge and expertise in AI and do something unique for a company like NetApp in the future. I think that's what's in front of me. But I'm taking it back to, if I was talking to myself at 19, 20, I would say, hey, just come up with a plan for your 20s. Because you know what, in your 30s, it's going to change. And then in your 40s, it's going to change. And so again, that sounds like old man wisdom, but I can tell you, had I heard that, I would have been so much more relaxed, because I put a lot of pressure on myself at 19 to come up with a life plan. And I think the best part is just experience each 5 to 10 year run, because it's all going to change for the better. So
I love it. That's great advice for me too, because I'm 19 and sometimes I do that as well.
yeah, especially if you're driven, which you are, right? You want to
you.
have your plan, and I get it. That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Dallas, as we wrap up here, these are the last two questions that I asked all my guests. You talked a bit about it, but I'm curious, what's your all-time best advice for teens and young people in college?
I think the first is start practicing putting yourself into human experiences that you normally wouldn't engage in. And I know that can sound scary, but I think it's so valuable. Meaning, here, just simple things like, hey, go listen to live music that you've never listened to before. Go join an organization on campus that you have a slight interest in, but you never really have taken the step. Go engage in areas where you can have dialogue with other students and those types of things. And because I think one of the things that happens is, and this happened to me. I remember getting into school and I was like, hey, I was trying to make grades and play soccer and do the things I wanted to do. And I could have spent more time engaging in these experiences that would have stretched me. Because then what happens is you graduate and you get a job. And now you're like, wow, I've got a job and I'm experiencing all these new human experiences. Some of them very exciting, some of them very scary and challenging. And scary just meaning like, nerve-wracking, like meeting new people and those types of things. And so I think for me, I would tell people, hey, start that now in college. Just start expanding yourself. And the way I tell people is, imagine yourself as a dot on a piece of paper, right? You're a dot, and then draw a circle around that dot. And that circle is your comfort zone. And all you got to do is take the tiniest step outside of that comfort zone, and the circumference of that comfort zone expands. And if you just take little ones over time, especially throughout college, your comfort zone will do this, right? And trust me, it'll make your working years and those things that much more pleasurable and joyous, because they won't be so nerve-wracking or terrifying or anxiety-ridden, because they're all brand new at the same time. Does that make sense? I hope
it does. Yeah, it's great advice. I think three things you said that I absolutely loved was, the first one is also like try a lot of different things instead of just becoming good at really one thing. Another thing you said was about exposing yourself to things that are new and different, which I think is really important too. And then also, I love the analogy of the dot and going outside of your comfort zone. I feel like the podcast has really helped me do that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I can see that. I can see that absolutely. This is a
Thank you so
perfect
much.
example, right? This is a perfect example of stretching yourself and expanding that.
Yeah,
You're doing a great job of it. Yeah,
thank you so much. I appreciate
yeah.
it. Last question of the day, Dallas, is what was your favorite part of being a guest on the Ochakde show today?
Seeing this come, my favorite part is just seeing you again from our original
Yeah,
conversation, which was so unique. Um, but look, I think the other thing I'll say is your questions are very, very insightful. Honestly, they're
thank you.
really, really insightful, and I love that you're not only doing this for you, but your audience will get a lot out of this, especially the people that you've talked to. I'm blown away by the people you've had on your show.
Yeah, I
It's
love it.
really
Keeps me
impressive.
going. Great
Yeah.
conversation. Before we end off the interview, I just got to do this. I usually never share my screen on virtual interviews, but we got to bring up the remember this? I mean,
Oh
just
yeah.
such good times 8 months ago. Here's some of the pictures, guys, if you want to see when I ran into Dallas. Good
It's
times. It was amazing. It was
absolutely
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah. I'm so glad we were able to
I
do
was
it.
so impressed with you in the moment. And again, I am. It's just even more so. But that was really fun, very unique, beautiful example of expanding your comfort zone and stretching yourself.
Thank you so much. That was a
Yeah.
great conversation. I really appreciate the opportunity. I really learned a lot. Guys, if you joined the episode, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.